It's the calm after the storm. And it's going to be very, very, very quiet in the eastern part of the United States right through Christmas, and maybe just some storminess out along the West Coast, and maybe a little bit of rain in parts of the Gulf states. But other than that, it's a relatively snowless map across the United States. We're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about the long range. All of this tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which, of course, is brought to you by Tempest by WeatherFlow. You can get the revolutionary Tempest weather system. Join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is going to be pinned to the top of the chat board. It's also on the descriptor to this video. And if you make any purchases on the website, be it the weather station or anything else, use the coupon code, because there is a coupon available, and you should use the coupon. And the coupon code is I want a weather station. And as only Joe Rayo can tell us, you'll get
a big 10% off. That was my Lurch imitation. I do a very poor Lurch.
I won't argue with it. I won't argue with that.
You rang. Yeah.
Yes. You rang.
Yeah.
Mine's a little better than yours.
That was Ted Cassidy, by the way.
Yes.
The late, great Ted Cassidy.
Ethel May, you were never prettier. Well, I won't argue with that. Anyway, hope your day was a good one.
We did shopping. We went to BJ's this afternoon.
Oh, very good.
And we spent a few hours there just trolling the aisles, so to speak. Gathering up last minute things in lieu of the impending holiday coming up this weekend and all of next week. There'll be hardly much to do. So, we spent time. She said, would you like to come shopping with me to go to BJ's? And I said, you mean you need somebody to push the cart around? Yes.
Well, I can get it, though. I wish there were a Costco near me. I have to drive 90 minutes to the nearest Costco, so I miss it. But when I go to my daughter's in Marietta, I usually stop off and try to stop off at Costco to pick up a couple of barrels of mayonnaise.
What do you need to go to Costco for when you can just go to Sam Drucker's?
Well, that's true. That's true. I do go to the meat processing plant and get my lamb, which is actually quite good. The meat quality is excellent, by the way. At the meat process. I'm not joking. It's a meat processing plant that they have, and they also sell to the public. They have a retail section, and they've got a lot of nice meats and also let's call them exotic meats. I don't know if you want to call deer meat an exotic meat, but I happen to like venison, so
yes,
I can help myself to that. Welcome tonight to everybody on the chat board, and welcome to everybody else that's watching tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, part of the 5-day-a-week Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, Sunday through Thursdays at 7:35 p.m., and we'll note it again as we did yesterday. Tomorrow will be the last show this week. We will be off Thursday through Christmas Day for the Christmas holiday, of course, and then we will be back a week from today. So one more show this week, tomorrow. And it's, you know what, Joe, it worked out well from the standpoint of weather, because I always hesitate when there's weather going on. I mean, I certainly don't like to not have a show when we've got a storm, and I don't think we've missed any of them over the years that you and I have been doing this. But it's going to be quiet, not just here, but over a good chunk of the United States. And if you're traveling, because a lot of folks are already on their way to, and maybe soon on their way to wherever they're celebrating Christmas, I really don't see much in the way of travel headaches at all, unless you're going, maybe if you're going to the West Coast, if you're going to, say, Los Angeles or San Francisco, because it there might be some heavy rain out there from time to time over the next several days. But other than that, I mean, she may be able to get anywhere without any weather glitches.
I think really, um, yeah, I think much of the nation will be. Well, actually, I won't say that because, excuse me, on Christmas Day, we will be looking at a swath of unsettled weather that'll run from the Great Lakes down to the Gulf coastal area, and much of that is probably going to be in the form of rain. In fact, I posted something today, Joe, from the Weather Underground on my Facebook page, indicating that this Christmas may be the wettest and least snowiest Christmas Day nationwide in over 20 years.
The
Sure looks
wettest,
like that.
the wettest and the brownest.
And the brownest. That's right.
Yes. Well, you know
Of
what?
all the Charlie Browns in the world this year, weather-wise, this looks like the Charlie Browniest.
Yes. Well, look, here's a map that I think says it all. Okay. It is the 19th of December, right? Right. You would think that it would be snowing someplace, right? Right. Well,
Right.
unless you're on some mountain in the Sierra Nevadas or on some mountains up in the Cascades, this is the map that's up on the screen is the probability of at least 2 inches. So we pretty much have a low threshold here. The probability of at least 2 inches over the next 72 hours, which takes us to Friday night. I don't think I have seen. I'm looking at this and I'm thinking it's a May map. It's got to be an early May map because I could sort of understand that if you're in the south or the south or the southeast or the southern half of the U.S., but not to have it snowing in the northern Rockies, the central Rockies, the plains, the Great Lakes, the interior Northeast, any time in the next 3 days to put down a lousy couple of inches. I mean, if this is this map defines a snow drought.
This, well, we've been saying this now for a very long time. I mean, I've been using cities such as Minneapolis, Milwaukee, places in the Dakotas like Minot or Bismarck. It is ridiculous that we're seeing this particular year, but this is really wild, Joe. I mean, look at it. I mean, you're right. Look at that map, almost completely devoid of any significant snowfall, and Christmas is just a stone's throw away ahead of us.
And by the way, the definition of weird stuff happening is also when the weird stuff that's happening is the fact that nothing is happening to this extreme. I mean, the fact that you've got the whole country, uh, in terms of snow cover, it's minuscule, really. It's not record. Oddly enough, it's not a record low, but you know what? It's darn close to it. So the fact that we have this is another weird thing that we could put down on the checklist of weird things that have been going on. And the other thing I was thinking about also, and I'd like to get your thoughts on this, but we've been of course observing all these extreme weather events, and I'm thinking about the fact that we've had these, we basically just had back-to-back events that produced extreme rain in some places, and this past event in a lot of places. I just wonder when the snowstorms do come, that they are not going to be piddly things. That the same rules may apply to some snowstorms along the way, whether they're here or someplace else, that are also going to kind of land in that extreme zone.
Well, we mentioned yesterday. I mentioned yesterday that at Central Park, and I don't remember this, but because I said that the park has probably gone through this month so far without a single flake of snow, but they were recording a trace of snow for December
Yeah, but
7th.
that had to happen on one of those days when we had the upper trough go by. An upper trough go by. Was it maybe a week and a half or 2 weeks ago, where you had some flakes up by you, and they had snow showers on Long Island. They had snow showers in New Jersey. So probably in one of those instances that earlier in the month when we had some cold, one of these quick cold shots that came in.
Well, I did some checking. Now, we base everything on long-term records, 30 years. That's the benchmark. You see what happens over a 30-year time span. And over the last 30 years at Central Park, believe it or not, we have had as many as 8 Decembers with just a trace of snow. And this, no doubt, is going to be one of them. This will be number 9, so to speak. So you wonder what was the winter like in those 8 other cases? What did we see after a trace of snow in December? What was the rest of the winter like in all those other years? 1994, 96, 97, 99, 2001, 2015, 18, and 22. And 22, of course, was last year. Last year we had only a trace of snow. Right. And you know what we got last year at Central Park, 2.3 inches.
I'm going to guess that, well, all right, so you said December of 15, correct, is on that list?
2015.
And also December of 18?
Yes.
So I'm going to guess that either every single one of those winters was subdued or very subdued, or at most one of those winters was not subdued.
Well, the average in Central Park is up to now what, 30, 31 inches?
30-ish.
Yeah. Okay, so let's say 30 inches. That's the average. And in 7 out of those 8 cases, it fell below average.
Yeah, well, that makes sense.
94, 11.8 inches. 96, 10 inches. 97, 5.5 inches. 99, 16.3. 2001, Joe, 3.5 inches of snow for the entire winter season. Right. Again, it's coming off of a December that gave us just a trace of snow at Central Park. 2018, 20.5 inches. At least we got into the 20s with that particular case. And then last year, 2.3. The only one that scored above normal was the winter of 2015, a trace of snow in December. And you remember this very well, Joe, right. I'm sure.
The January storm, the 27.2 or whatever it was.
Which dropped 27.5 inches. That was literally the whole winter right there. Yeah. That one storm, 27.5 inches at Central Park. Now, if you take away that storm, it would have been another case of like 5.5 inches for the entire winter season.
Well,
So there was that one anomaly. But it is one thing that you can hang your hat on, all of you snow lovers out there, that a trace of snow in December doesn't necessarily absolutely mean that the winter is going to be shot to you-know-what, shot to heck. There is a chance that we could have something odd happen. Cold air mass builds in just at the right time that a storm is coming our way to drop a significant amount of snow.
Well, I mean, obviously the odds are stacked against you, and it assumes that the general pattern holds through the whole winter, which we don't know is going to be the case. And the data set is small, just so I'm trying to balance this out. But yeah, it's not, those stats aren't particularly encouraging for snow lovers. On the other hand, I've been saying that I've been cautiously encouraged by the idea that the pattern is going to change. And while I looked at last night's run when I got up this morning, and I just, was just sort of like, oh my God. The look of it was one where, yeah, the pattern changed, but it's changed to something that you probably aren't going to like. However, the day runs today offer some hope, and soon, relatively soon, probably within 10 days, which is, starting in, the pattern change will start sooner than that. But in terms of it revealing itself, from a practical nature, probably in about 10 days. So I'm still cautiously encouraged. I want to see now over the next 3 or 4 days if we keep going down this road. But I'm certainly not going to, nowhere near anywhere throwing in the towel. Let's put it like that.
Right.
Meanwhile, rivers were cresting all over New England today from the rain. And I was thinking about this. I'm going to be very curious to find out how many places in New England either have their wettest Decembers on record, but maybe even their wettest year on record, considering what they went through this summer.
Yeah, it's been it was crazy wet here in the Northeast, especially in New England this past summer, and you would think that we would have that behind us, and then yesterday or Sunday night into yesterday, look what happened. I mean, it's still making headlines. All of the rain, the gusty winds. One person on Facebook said to me today, "When is this going to end?" And quite frankly, Joe, I couldn't answer that question. I really don't know.
Yeah, it was nasty, and I still shake my head that people actually posted on my Facebook page before this was starting to say, it's just rain, nobody cares. You know, and by the
It's
way, did you? I don't know if you happened to see some of the pictures from the Jersey Shore in terms of the ocean and the waves that were crashing in
yeah.
were not to be believed. I mean, I just some of those pictures were like, oh, that I looked at, and I know the person who took these particular pictures, and my jaw dropped because those waves were just off the wall. I don't know how high they were, but
And that was during a period of the neap tides. And in other words, we're in between astronomically high tides, which come at new and full moon. And we even said the other night, was on Sunday night, we said, well, thankfully, it's not coming
well,
during a
you
high
know what?
tide
And
cycle.
thankfully it was because could you imagine if this had come in a full moon or a new moon
Oh,
at the
no,
peak
I don't want
tide?
to. Imagine.
I mean,
I don't want to.
as it is, the storm surges were in some places, they're in top five. Uh, the South Shore parts of the South Shore of Long Island saw surges that were higher. They were the highest since Hurricane Sandy, and those surges were record breaking. So
Right.
yeah, I mean, yeah, they really, thankfully, we were not in a situation like that. By the way, Bill Uber hits super chat tonight. Thank you for hitting the tip jar, William. Most appreciated on this Tuesday night, and I've got the satellite loop up, which still we've got clouds dealing with this, the leftovers of this today. We're being on the backside. The upper trough is right on the coast, and we still have some cloud cover to work through. I just refreshed the loop, and you can still see the feed of moisture that's running from just north of Puerto Rico all the way up into Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. So this thing is still at it out in Atlantic Canada. And we've got a lot of disorganized moisture in the southwest, but we don't see any subtropical feed coming out of the Pacific and into the Gulf of Mexico and off the Florida coast. So that's not there, and that's good. And elsewhere, it's really just a mess of clouds that are around. There's not a whole lot of precip that we're dealing with. And it certainly looks like the weather for the next couple of days should be nice. And I would lean on the idea that it would be, temperatures are probably going to be close to where they're supposed to be for this time of year, maybe a shade above, uh, or depending on where you're located, maybe a shade below. Nothing really extraordinary from that respect.
Well, yeah, the funny thing is with it, this had nothing to do with weather, but on my page, Joe, the YouTube page that I have, I mean, I can see the numbers of who's watching right now. And right now, my counter says 227, and that has been changing, or in fact, wow, it just changed to 244. But the thumbs up, the likes, isn't registering at all.
Oh,
I mean, in order for me to see the new like or the latest bunches of likes, I have to literally exit out of YouTube and go right back into YouTube, and then I see the latest number. I don't know if anybody else.
Well, we're at
is
50.
having the same.
Well, we're at 52. I promise you, when I see 100, I will tell you so you can ring the bell. Okay?
Oh, thank you.
Oh, you're quite welcome. But anyway, back to the loop. Uh, rather ordinary. Again, nothing really unusual. And we'll check out the latest radar, and even the lake effect is pretty much done. A couple of little patches there of some snow aloft in upstate New York and in central Pennsylvania, but that's gonna go away. The rest of New England not seeing very much. You really have to go to the West Coast to find anything of consequence at the moment. Rain coming into Washington State, uh, and also on the east side of Washington State, we've got some patchy rain. And we've had rain moving into California, and there's some more rain offshore that's about to move in. And this is about the only place here, the West Coast, over the next 3 or 4 days, where we're probably going to see the waves of rain coming in. And we'll also, late this week, probably start seeing uh, rain developing in the lower Mississippi Valley down to the Gulf Coast, which is really good because those folks certainly need it. WPC's 7-day rainfall forecast. This takes us to next Tuesday night. Little or nothing from the Northeast to the northern mid-Atlantic states. You start to get to half to 3/4 of an inch in the southeast, and then you start going up to an inch and a half or higher from the Florida Panhandle westward into East Texas and northward up into Arkansas, and a half inch even pushes up as far north as Chicago. So this is all going to be part of that next weather system that Joe mentioned that on Christmas Day is probably going to be heading to our west and eventually pushing into the east. And you can see up and down the west coast, particularly in Southern California, from south of San Francisco down to San Diego, it's an inch and a half to 3 inches plus in terms of rainfall over the next week. Also heavy on the north coast of California, and then also up in the northwestern corner of Washington State. And we've already shown you the pathetic snow map, which has absolutely nothing. So I think we can go from here, and we'll take a look at what the upper air is going to be looking like. And I've got Joe. I went back to Saturday when this whole thing evolved. The upper trough in the Gulf of Mexico that spawned the surface low that wound up coming all the way up the East Coast and going up the Hudson River into upstate New York. We had the northern feature here, this wrapped up cutoff that energized it as it moved eastward, and you'll see it here how it just sort of that northern energy lifts up, and then you got another second trough that came down into the Great Lakes. It just kind of phased with all of this. This was early Monday morning, and then it just went. It not only went that trough in the southeast, not only went negative, Joe, it went actually east-west. I mean, it went completely east-west, which now it certainly explains why we had such a deep low that moved through. That trough goes out, actually makes a little coastal storm offshore tonight and Wednesday, and then that goes away. And then we just sort of get into a flattish ridge position as we go through the weekend and into next week. Now here's where the changes start for starting next week. So I've kind of got it set here to Sunday, and I'm going to go to the North America view, and I want to just highlight just a couple of things here. So in the east and up into eastern Canada, this whole area is higher than normal pressures aloft. In the west, you've got a trough that runs from off the west coast over Alaska and then goes all the way back into East Asia. And there's an upper low over the Aleutians. There is some ridging going on up in the northwestern part of Canada, but unfortunately for cold air lovers, there's a trough in between the high in the east and the ridge in the west. There's a kind of a trough in the middle, so that cold air gets deflected back up into Canada. So that's why things are the way they are. But anyway, that ridge in the east starts to weaken and move northeastward. Got an upper low in the plains that's going to be swinging eastward for the middle part of next week. But the thing to pay attention to is out here in the Pacific, because this is where the changes. We've been saying how this is the important area that needs to change, because right now we're just kind of getting this sort of straight flow out of the Pacific. Well, this is next Wednesday, and going forward from there, you do see an important change that goes on out in the western part of in the Pacific. And this has to happen in order for everything else to kind of fall into a better position. So, again, we're at day 8 here on the GFS, and over from day 8 through day 16, you get a complete change in the western part of the United States and a complete change in the eastern part of the United States. Now, if you're a winter weather lover, this is what you want to see. You want to see this up in the Arctic, Joe. This, two big blocking. I mean, I know this is probably not going to happen. I just kind of drew the red thing around it, so it looks like two eyes are staring at you. But there is a double block on the 384 hour, one in Greenland and another one that's north of Alaska. I mean, if that were to verify, I'm sure if we looked at the Arctic Oscillation forecast uh, from this, if we could have one from this map, we probably would be like 3 or 4 standard deviations negative, which is negative AOs are usually bullish for cold air in the United States, but this is a much colder look all across the United States, and it's also even reflected um, in the temperatures, because if I go to the thermodynamic page and go to the temperature anomalies, supposedly uh, by the time we get to January 4th, except for the immediate East Coast, and that's probably because we're waiting for a weather system to play through, just about the whole country and Western Canada for the first time in quite a while, probably since back in November, uh, everybody's below normal in terms of temperatures. So it does seem to be going in this direction. The first below normal temperatures actually arrive around New Year's Eve, and then there's a cold front in between, I guess, that we have to deal with. But the bottom line is that, again, I'm cautiously encouraged that we're going into a direction where the pattern is changing. Uh, what that means, I don't know.
To answer the question about what somebody asked last night, I forgot who answered the question. Oh, I think it was the chairman. He says, once we move into the colder air pattern, will it be transitory or will it remain for a while? And that's something that is even more difficult to answer. Will it be here for a few days or a week or two and then suddenly leave again? Or can we hold on to this through most of January or through most of the remainder of the winter? Well, which hasn't even started yet officially.
We could look at this in a couple of ways. So we could look at it and say that, all right, what we've had much of this month, or actually, maybe for the last 2 weeks, because November was a colder than normal month. And I think if I remember correctly, it kind of bled into the first few days of December. Okay, so it's really only been 2 weeks that we've been in this pattern with the Pacific fire hose. All right, so if that's not the primary pattern, then I think there's a chance that what we're transitioning to is something that's going to last for a while. But that's the big question: is that the primary pattern or not? And I don't know. And Tom Contino, I don't know that I've ever seen the mod. I'm sure the models have done that look with what I would call a double block, but how real is that? I don't know. And it's probably going to be much different looking on the next run. But I would rather, at this point, I'm just sort of focusing on the overall trend more than anything else. And we could take a look at Ann Sambles, or as she has been lately, Ann Shambles, and see what she says. And well, we weren't going to expect this to be all blue at 384 hours, but let me just roll it back, and we'll let the maps load.
Tom Contino, you've got to do these postings. Be less confused. Tom Contino writes, Joe Rayo, a prominent meteorologist on Twitter, is saying it will lock in January. And I said to myself, I didn't say that.
No, he meant another. He meant another Joe.
He's making reference to. He's saying Joe Rayo. There should be like a pause there. Joe Rayo, a prominent meteorologist on Twitter, is saying it will lock in January. But the way it's typed on the chat board, it says, well, Joe Rayo, a prominent meteorologist.
I see. No, there's a comma there. He has a comma. Joe Rayo, a prominent he has a comma. I see it.
You know what would serve better than a comma?
3 dash lines. ...
Right. With Joe Rayo, hyphen.
Or say, Joe Rayo, guess what? Comma.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. I read that. I looked at it and I said, I didn't say that.
Style and grammar is something that we very much support here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which is on Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. Taking a page out of Bob Grant. The ant shambles are, they're not terrible on the temperatures, so I'm okay with this. And let me just look at the 500. Um, I mean, the upper air on the ensembles pretty much support what the operationals are doing. So there's that. So everything, uh, all the hints are here. I just would be careful to I really would be careful to immediately jump into the idea that it's going to be cold and stormy, because there's nothing that says it can't be cold and dry and cold and drought. Okay, that's happened before. So bear that in mind. It ain't a guarantee just because we go colder means that we're going to also maintain the stormier pattern. I would think that we would maintain it to a degree, but again, stranger things have happened and will continue to happen.
It's too bad we can't run the show the way they used to run the game show. I don't know how many of you have to be of a certain age to remember. Remember the game show, Joe, Treasure Hunt?
Oh yeah, I mean barely.
And they
I wasn't a fan.
and they started out with a sound of a heartbeat, and you saw this very distinguished gentleman standing there, expressionless, and then the announcer would say, "Ladies and gentlemen, this bonded security agent has just stuck a certified check for $25,000 inside one of these 30 surprise packages. Each night, we should have one of us, you or I, ladies and gentlemen, this well-known meteorologist, broadcast meteorologist, has just stuck the solution to this very long-term problem of no snow inside one of these
right.
30
right.
operational model packages."
Right. Joe, well, how we have so many famous people that lurk in the background on the Joe show. We always have it on good authority that the folks at some of the folks at WPC and SPC who watch this show religiously, but someone who is not lurking in the background. Let's not forget Taylor Swift. But someone who is not lurking in the background is Dave Tolerus, who is on the chat board. So I will just say to Dave, if you're still there, with a simple yes or no question, would you like to come on and explain your position here tonight on the podcast? If you do, type yes on the chat, and I will send you a secret link that you can use in order to gain access to our program. Meanwhile, while we're waiting for Dave to decide whether he will grace our show, Joe, with his personage, Lou Arizio and Robert Lomanicki both hitting super chat tonight. Thank you for the Christmas wishes, and of course, Merry Christmas to both of you back.
And Louis Arizio too has just hit the tip jar.
Yes, he has. So let's see. He says, as long as the Southern Stream Energy El Nino is still firing, the East Coast winter threat will be there. And that I would, I never learn. I never look. I'm going to not repeat the misspelled word in between never and look. I love Dave. I really do. I know some people have a hard time with him, but he really is I tease him, but he's a good guy. I appreciate that he's lurking in the background. I take that as a compliment.
But Tom Contino is almost egging Dave to come on. Didn't Dave Tolerus say the pattern would change by the 15th?
Oh, you know what? Give him a break, for God's sake. Jesus. What about what hour? What hour was it going to change? Okay? What time? Okay, so all right, let me see if we can get him on.
By the way, the bonded security agent on Treasure Hunt was Mr. Emil Otori, and every week.
Oh right, yes, that name rings a bell.
And the host of the show, Jeff Edwards, would at the end nobody would find the check. He said, "Mr. Otori, did you hide the check?" And the only thing that man ever said in all those years that the show was on the air, the only thing he ever said was, "Yes, I did." So we gotta, I could ask you, Joe. I said, Joe, did you hide the latest GFS solution to breaking this spell of exceedingly warm air down? And you could say, "Yes, I did." Well, you know who'll get it? We can get Dr. Cohen, Judah Cohen, who is still waffling.
Yeah, listen. It's not a good idea if you want to get somebody as a guest on the show to, you want to be nice to them. Once you have them here, once you have them here, you can hang them out. You can hang them out to dry because they're trapped. But make them at least think that they're going to a nice place. All right, I sent him something, so we'll see if he if Dave responds. He has courage. He knows that I don't bite.
Well, he says he can't do it. He says he cannot show himself visually.
All right, so he could do audio.
He could do
We're
audio.
Such a well. You know what? Can you imagine what we could do if we had a producer that could organize all this stuff? Because we don't. We do everything here on the fly. Leon Probitsky bangs the tip jar. Thank you, Leon. Most appreciated. All right, so if he wants to do audio, we can do him with audio. But anyhow, I'll monitor here to see what whether he pops up or not. Okay, so in the meantime, as we take a look going forward, don't get excited on the 384 hour. It's going to be gone on the next run. But really, except for that low in the west that drops southward off the California coast and just keeps spinning rain in there, and then some energy coming in the Pacific Northwest, there isn't much, and also some Gulf moisture that pushes up into the Gulf states over time. But in the east, Joe, the biggest excitement will probably be Friday night and Saturday, or late Friday night and Saturday, when a warm front goes by to our north, and we have to deal with some clouds and maybe a sprinkle.
It's a funny thing. I mentioned the sprinkle yesterday, and today, after looking at everything, I said, I'm going to take it out.
You took it out? Well, tomorrow you could.
I may put it back in. I may put it back in tomorrow.
You might put it back in. I'm sure. I'm sure.
Dave Collar says loading up in a second. So.
Okay, good. So that's that, and then this next low, which you get one center that runs so far to the west because of the ridge in the east, so that's why it's delayed. So Christmas Day, Christmas Eve looks great. I don't think it's going to be crazy warm though. I mean, it's probably going to be a little above normal, but it's not going. I don't think it's going to be off the wall, especially if the high goes out to Nova Scotia. We start to deal with an onshore flow when we get into after Christmas. But then here comes another round of rain. I looked at this earlier and I saw the way this sort of arm of an occlusion with a redeveloping low off North Carolina and thought, oh no, let's not have another 2 to 3 inch rain producer out of this. But we'll see. And then the GFS does something silly with leftover energy, makes a low that goes into the Gulf of Maine. There's hardly any cold air, but then it does actually look colder on the map with a high coming down out of Canada once we get toward New Year's Eve, and going into the first couple of days of the new year. But we'll see. It's a big we'll see. We had my kids. We have an aunt will see, because every time you asked her about doing something, she would always say, "We'll see." Okay. You want to meet us down in Florida for vacation? That question was asked 25 years ago. We'll see. All right. I don't see him here. The chairman, Scott Briller, just hit super chat, and I have super chat, so maybe I will. I'm sorry. I have Briller Jeopardy. The tip jar, Scott. Thank you for hitting the tip jar on this Tuesday night. Oh, Joe, ring the bell. Ring the bell.
All right, I'll ring it if I can find it. Where's the bell?
I don't know. You're the bell monitor.
No, I think I lost my bell.
Well, it's not good to use.
Oh, wait a minute. Here it is.
It's never, Joe, it's never. Go ahead.
There you go.
It's never good to lose anything that starts with the letter B.
Thank you, dear.
Oh, everybody stand by. Could we have, I wish we had like royalty music that we could play in the background because
I can
he,
try to call up pomp and circumstance.
right, no, because that's we'll probably get in trouble for that. Because after all, at a certain level, he is weather. David, are you with us? Audio only.
Yeah, I am.
Oh,
There you go.
well, very good. Well, you know what?
Like a bad dose of the clap, I never go away. Well, probably not the best analogy. Nah, whatever.
No, certainly not in the family hour.
So I don't analogies I don't do very well.
Okay, so I've been going along the lines of, I get to where sometimes, you're waiting for something to happen and you just sort of get
Sure.
really frustrated.
Sure.
But I've been cautiously encouraged the
Yep.
last few days, and
Yep.
today I'm tempted to take it up one level, but I want to see because every so often the GFS will throw in a clunker run in here over the last
Yeah.
couple of days,
Sure.
like
Always.
this, like when I looked at it this morning and I looked at the 0Z and I wanted to spit up, to
Right.
tell you the truth.
Well, again, to our weather friends, or weather hobbyists, or weather weenies.
Wait a
or
minute.
salt fanatics.
Dave, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
Joe,
Yeah.
on the chat board tonight, I haven't seen him in almost 2 years.
Oh
now.
no! Oh my God! No, he
You
was
see
here.
who I'm talking about?
Yes, I do. I'm sorry, Dave, but it's an inside joke, and I'll bring it up again later if he's still here. Go on.
All right. It's all right.
All right.
I'm just saying that now for the next week, okay, for all our weather friends, hobbyists, weenies, what have you, fanatics, sick, twisted weather freaks, whatever you want to call yourselves, you're going to get into those clunker runs. So, if that happens, ignore it. Either wait for the new run or wait another half an hour before you take that gun and put it to your head and wait for the new ensemble run to come out and see if it's doing it. So the morning that clunker run this morning, the operational one was crap. But when you look at the ensemble,
the ensembles were consistent. And that's kind of what I did. Okay, right. As you described. I mean, literally, Dave. I rolled over in bed. I grabbed my phone. I have the tropical tidbits icon on my phone, so I tapped it and I scrolled through the map. I scrolled through the 500, and I saw I mean, the northern hemisphere was completely in above normal heights everywhere, and I just went, no, no. But you're right.
A couple of things going on. One is the Indian Ocean dipole is weakening at a steady pace. So that's an important influence in the Pacific. So that's going to help. The El Nino has reached its peak. It has leveled off. If you look at any of the one, the ENSO 3.4 and 1.2, ENSO 3 or 4, it has all leveled off. Some of them have started declining, which is supposed to happen as we go to January. You're supposed to see a slow decline in January. So it's peaking. That's not a problem. And now, as for the other stuff, I and a bunch of other people thought that the pattern was going to switch in mid-December, and it didn't. But what happened is once we got into on December 1st or 2nd, we could see the MJO suddenly, instead of going into phase 8 and 1, which is cold and snowy for the eastern U.S. in December, suddenly turned into neutral circle. And the pattern, which, the European ensembles had a big trough on the East Coast and a Christmas snowstorm type of thing and cold air, completely collapsed. And they all collapsed at the exact same time. It wasn't one model collapsed, another one said this, another one said that.
Right.
They all changed at the same time.
Right.
Now, when you see that and everything changes at the same time, or within 6 hours of each other, that's a really important sign. We're not talking about a model doing this and a model doing that. You have inconsistency.
When they all do it, that's telling you something.
When they all flip at the same time, it means you're screwed. All right, that's what happens, whatever it is. Now, it might be a warm pattern, it's flipping to a cold pattern. And that's what happened over this past weekend. This past weekend, it looked like all the data was showing, and there were other weather sites out there and folks saying it's going to stay warm and snows into January, almost February. And then what happened this weekend? Boom, it all flipped.
Yeah. Well,
So,
well, I try not to pay too much attention to the noise that's out there with that sort of stuff, and just kind of stay focused on what's in front of me. And
right.
I agree with you. I mean, I can remember, I don't know if it was 2 or 3 years ago, we were sort of sitting around for a pattern change, and it was one of these things where, and this is about as deep into the as into the short range, where I think it got to within, like, we were waiting for this pattern change, waiting for the models are showing this pattern change. It was suddenly within like 5 or 6 days, and then on one run they all flipped and went to this trough in the west.
Yep.
Which wound up staying for weeks. But you're right. When they all do it, it's really important. You know what I want to ask you though, and this has kind of been baffling me because I'm trying to learn more in terms of correlating what's going on in the stratosphere and what's going on downstairs. And the polar vortex has pivoted in an east-west fashion across northern Europe and across northern Siberia, and then at the same time we've got this sort of, this high in the stratosphere that's moved across North America at the moment, and then it looks like toward the end it's starting to pivot around, and everybody in the stratosphere world is talking about a stratospheric warming event, and I just like to hear your take on what's going on up there and what it means for downstairs.
Yeah, my view is, you know, we do see pattern amplification. Okay. You had this image up there when I first came on, which was the GFS extended like 300-hour, the North American shot
Right.
on the tropical tidbits. If you can call that image up
Yeah,
for
sure.
1 second, I
will.
want to see that.
I will do that. You want the 300 hour?
Or 324, whatever
Okay.
it is,
All right.
something like that.
All right. Give me a second. I'm popping it up now. So it's all right. The GFS 10 millibar, and it should be up on your screen momentarily. I have.
Yeah.
This is the two. Well, let me roll it up further. When it gets on the screen, I'll move it for you. Hold on.
Right.
I'm sorry, my screen is on a delay, so I don't know if you could see it, or I can't see it. Can you tell me if you have it?
Let me see
If you see it?
here. If it's not yet, there's still a delay here. Let me see if it's running. Come on up. Let me see if it's coming.
Not yet. Well,
I'm looking at my own. I'm looking at
Yep.
my own screens for the GFS, and it looks like an awfully wintry type pattern. I mean, in fact, I see some kind of a storm coming out of the western Gulf of Mexico, while the cold air is trying to get in across the Northeast. So, maybe things are going to flip.
Well, after what we do know is that after Christmas, okay, we have some sort of massive impulse in the southern energy. We can see that, and the model's already showing some kind of significant eastern U.S. low on December 28th or 29th, or maybe 27th or 28th, depending what model you look at. We can see that on the GFS. We can see it on the European. It's showing up in all the models. Now, some models have a low in Ohio. Some models have in North Carolina. We don't know where it's going to be, but there's a strong signal there's going to be something there. The problem is we're still going to be warm atmospherically. So most of what's going to happen on December 27, 28 will probably rain, unless you're in the mountains. Okay, that's what it looks like to me. So because we're so warm from Christmas Day, it's going to take a while to get the cold air in place, folks. It's going to take a while. That's going to happen. But then beyond that, when you start seeing the pattern of the ridge really amplify, that's when things really take off. So let me see if I
By
can
the way,
call it up.
it should the stratosphere, the 300 whatever hour I have up there, it should be on your screen now.
Let me see if it's loading up on there. Yeah, there it is. Okay. Now, can you shift that to the 500 for a second?
Yes.
Now, that's a very elongated polar vortex, which is a nice sign. But if you can shift that whole the same projection, northern hemisphere, to 500 millibar,
sure,
that would be great.
So we'll now put the 500. Okay.
And the thing is, the point that I'm trying to get here is that you can see the ridge on west coast of Western Canada really reach into the Arctic region. It really extends into the Arctic region. Now, what that's called is, a lot of people know what that's called. It's called the cross-polar flow or the Siberian Express. So that's why I wanted to show that. And what that does is that's going to, if you've been following the news stories, you've been seeing all the cold air has been in Europe. All the cold air has been in Asia and Ukraine and Siberia. That's where the cold air has been. But if you get that ridge extending into Alaska and across into the Arctic region, now you're getting cross-polar flow coming straight in to North America, and the cold air gets replenished that way. So that's what's important about that. Let me see if I can call up in mine.
Yeah, I just drew over the map, and I drew the follow the I like to play follow the flow, and it goes from the western portions of the Arctic region almost straight south in through central Canada, then turns east.
Right.
What particularly interests me though is the fact that the heights, the heights are for much of the U.S. except for the northern plains and the Great Lakes are below normal, and particularly across the whole southern stream. You also have a deep, you have a deep upper low south of the Aleutians with a trough going down along 160. So usually you get the trough at 160 means you're going to have the trough near 80 somewhere. So the setup is there, and I do like the fact, from the standpoint of the southern, what looks like to me a really active jet. An active southern stream jet that comes from the Pacific into over Baja, over to Mexico, and then across the Gulf out to Florida and offshore. I mean, that's a nice look. That for that the snow, and you also have, by the way, you got the ridge at the 40 North Ridge pushing all the way up into Greenland on the other side.
Right. Yes, that's exactly. Yeah, you can clearly see that. So, and what's happening is by the time you get up to 320 hours, 330 hours, the vortex is splitting into two pieces. Now, the other point I wanted to make out about this is that I don't know if anybody recalls the earlier conversations. We talked about the climate models and what they were showing in September and October and November, December.
Yes.
The point I'm trying to make here, folks, is that while you can complain about, well, the weekly model showed this and they showed that, the climate models from the European, the GFS, and the Canadian all showed December was going to be warm. They showed it in September. They showed it in October. They showed it in November. They showed it in December. They never varied, and they've gotten December right. But they also showed that January is going to flip, and February is going to be flipped and cold and potentially stormy, and same thing with March. So far, from my point of view, as somebody deals with the long range, so far the climate models have been really, really good. They haven't missed on anything. The weekly models have flip-flopped back and forth. I get that.
No, you're right. You're right. I've been paying. You're right.
They got December perfect. They got it right in September. They got it right in October. They got it right in November, and they got it right in December 1st. And you remember back on December 1st, yours truly, yes, it was me. I thought the pattern was going to flip in December. It didn't, but the climate models got it right.
Right.
I didn't.
Well, look, I'm not gonna hang you out to dry because you said mid-month, and if it winds up turning that it's late month, okay, so it's it's 10 days to 2 weeks.
I don't have a problem with that, Joe. If you think it's gonna go that way, and it doesn't, and it changes, say you got it wrong. I'm a big boy, really. It doesn't have a problem.
No, I know.
It's not an issue.
I'm not.
Tom, on the chat, I saw Tom ask me a question. Yes, I got it wrong. It's called being wrong, Tom. It happens. If you're afraid of being wrong in the weather business, get out of the business and go sell shoes.
Right. Well, Dave, you are human. Rumors to the contrary.
Okay, yeah, that's a rumor. It hasn't been proven yet.
It hasn't been proven yet. Hey, here's a question. I want to just kind of get into it. Also ask you your opinion on this. We were talking about this last night after this animal that rolled up the East Coast this weekend, which was really,
that was a beast.
It was, and you can't. I'm convinced that given its origins, starting out as it did in the Gulf of Mexico, had that strong subtropical feed. And then how the upper air just got involved the way it did, and I mean the trough not only went negative, but it went 90 degrees. I mean it went completely east-west as it lifted up. I wonder whether if we do get into a
Yes.
dynamic pattern that with colder air around, are we going to see? Because it seems like again, that doesn't seem like it. It actually is reality. We keep pushing the envelope with these systems over the last year, pushing them to extremes. I just wonder whether maybe we'll have fewer storms, but storms that will be, let's call it, unusually productive in terms of what they wind up producing. I don't want to go out and say that they're going to be as extreme as
Well, okay, you can compare this winter to the last three. Okay, the last three winters had La Nina.
right.
Now, one of the things we know about La Nina, okay, is that it's usually it's bad for the East Coast.
Right.
And the reason why it's bad for the East Coast is because La Nina favors the West Coast trough, which means a ridge on the East Coast, and that restricts your nor'easters. You do not get a lot of nor'easters with La Ninas. Okay. And they'll occasionally get one, but not a lot. And if you don't get coastal storms, you don't get big winters.
Right.
And therefore, your snow production on the East Coast is below normal. And it's even below normal in the Ohio Valley or the Great Lakes area sometimes. So it's not just the East Coast, but that's what La Nina does. Okay. With El Nino in the right conditions here, you can get a lot of storms. The question is what your temperature is going to be. And so far, if you compare this, what we've seen in November, December, to what we've seen last year and the year before that, we're seeing a lot of nor'easters. We're seeing a lot of coastal storms. Sometimes the coastal storm is just inland. Sometimes it's on the coast. Sometimes it's the perfect offshore track.
Right.
But we're seeing a lot of them, a pretty good number of them. So
well, no,
do I think it's something that shut down? No.
No.
I think we could get more of them. Yes.
That part of the equation has set itself up early. It really has. And now that if as long as assuming that what we're seeing over the next couple of weeks follows through, I would think we were going to have some chances. I can't imagine we're going to go like this. I didn't think we were going to have this Pacific fire hose for the whole winter, but then again, last year we wound up locking in at the end of December, and that lock never got broken
right.
all the way through. So, are you concerned about there haven't been, are we going to start to see at least some more Arctic air masses up in Canada? Has been not, I mean, Canada's cold because it's cold, but it's not.
Right.
It's not.
Right.
It's been dirty cold air, and I would much rather see at least some quality cold air come down.
Well, there's that issue of the blowtorch. Now, what happens is you'll see meteorologists and other people talking about a blowtorch in social media and chats and so on and so forth. And then you'll have folks who live, let's say, on the East Coast or weather nuts and weather hobbyists are saying, well, it's not a blowtorch for me. For example, okay, here in Central Virginia, okay, my temperatures for the next couple of days, let's see, I was 46 today, 51 tomorrow, 46 on the 14th, 53 on the 15th, 54, 49, 53. My normal high is 50 in mid and late December. So that's not a blowtorch.
No, and I can tell you from hearing.
But the issue is, here's the thing. The same air mass, which is giving me near normal, or the New York near normal, or DC near normal, in Chicago is 10 degrees above normal.
Right.
Because their normals are much lower in December and January.
Correct.
Okay. So the problem is that when we use the term blowtorch, you have to remind people they're not necessarily talking about your location. And so in the Midwest, because their air directly comes from Canada, they are very much above normal. Okay. On the East Coast, we're getting north flow from the offshore storm from Sunday still. We're getting high pressure in Quebec, Canada. So we're not seeing the warm up here yet. So it depends, So a lot of meteorologists, when they use the term blowtorch and stuff like that, they're just conveying the meteorology. People want to know about their local neighborhood and their location. So, yes, on the East Coast, it has not been a blowtorch right now.
I certainly wouldn't define what, the last month. Yeah, it's above normal on, overall, but it's not crazy. I mean, we're not 55 to 60 every single day. That's for sure. And by the way, just to put a little icing on that, my low this morning, Dave, was 19, and my high was 38.
Yeah.
At the south end of
that's not bad for the East Coast. For the mountains, that's not bad at all.
No, it's pretty good.
And you
actually.
have no snow on the ground, right?
I have no snow on the ground. No, I was just I was about maybe 50 miles south of where the snow was in the Blue Ridge, in the Blue
Right.
Ridge Mountains. So,
Right.
but it'll get down here eventually. Joe, Rayo, you got Dave in here. You have to crucify him. Go on.
I'm just looking at the chat board, and I'm loving to see what Mr. Fairchild has been saying. He's saying I'm going to use a blowtorch
I know.
on my burgers.
Did you happen to catch the comment earlier though? He wants to know why we haven't gotten a new set.
Why we haven't gotten a new set?
You know what, Ruben? Instead of taking that check to that university you go to, that's probably teaching you to do all sorts of nefarious things, just send it to us and we'll buy ourselves a studio with it. Because God knows with what it costs to go to college, that we probably could buy ourselves a studio with it.
And he's also, by the way, said, Dave, that, your forecasts are basically wrong and we're not going to see any changes through April. So
I don't care what he thinks. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Who gives a shit?
You got to get used to this. Now that we have Mr. Fairchild back after about 2 years, it's kind of like if you're a stand-up comic. You need somebody in the audience to heckle you.
Well, Joe, we should tell Dave that he's the only member of the chat board that has an award named after him.
That's right. The Ruben Fairchild.
We give out the Ruben Fairchild Award for, whatever we decide to give it out for. So he carries that distinction.
From what I can see of him, he's not a serious person because he doesn't. I don't really care what he thinks or doesn't think. All I care about is what he knows, what he can prove, and what he can show with data. So he doesn't have any of that. So his opinion has no value to me. That's just my view. It's just. He can say what he wants to. I'm not taking. I wouldn't even think about saying he shouldn't be able to do that. But since he has nothing to back it up with, who cares?
We do operate in a semi-free speech environment here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, which airs Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. Every once in a while, the ghost of Bob Grant takes over, and I have to do a shameless promo.
Do you want to explain to the broccoli tornado, Joe, who DT Maine is?
Yeah, who was that clown?
No, he's not he's a member of our studio audience. Okay. He's not a clown. I can't see what he put. What did he say? He wants to know who DT is?
He wants to know who DT Maine. Yeah.
He wants
who
to know
this DT person?
Oh, okay. So Broccoli Tornado, DT is also AKA Dave Tolerus, AKA Weather Risk, one of the most charming individuals you will ever meet on the face of the earth. Just bear that in mind. But no, it's all serious. Dave knows his weather. I mean, he really does. And we love having him here because we can have a nice, good discussion about
sometimes
about
when my personality is really working just right, I get an award for being the Jack Reacher of weather.
And when was the last time you got one of those, Dave?
I think last week.
Really? Oh, okay.
No.
Oh, good Lord. So on a personal note,
yes, sir.
No, on a personal note, Chris, I think I asked you this the last time, but what's Santa Claus bringing you?
Who?
Santa Claus.
More work.
More work? Well, that's good. That's good. I know, really, seriously, I really hope you enjoy the holidays with your family, and hopefully hopefully I have confidence in what you're saying because I see the same things you're seeing.
Right.
I just get a little nervous until it gets inside 7 days. I need
Sure.
You got to.
Sure. And like if you look at the 6 to 10, 8 to 14 day, the Climate Prediction Center, they're always going to be slow and delayed. I mean, remember, like the 8 to 14 day, for example, that's a week. Okay. So if the pattern starts turning, let's say at the end of the week, since it's a mean and average, you're still going to have a warm week.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not going to flip until it reaches a decisive turning point. So you have to be careful when you use the 6 to 10 day, 8 to 14 day, because that's an average over 5 or 6 days. So if the pattern turns cold in the last 2 days, it's not going to show up.
Right. So listen, I'm going to do something that I'm going to do something right now. I am going to serve Ruben Fairchild to you on a silver platter because he says, "Why is the Climate Prediction Center predicting warm?" Dave,
I told you why.
Go.
That's exactly why, because the 8 to 14 day, for example, is a 7-day average. Okay, so if it starts turning cold at day 6 or 7 or day 13 or 14, whatever the case is, that's not going to show up until the majority of the days become cold. So there have been instances, I'm sure you've seen this, Joe, where the Climate Prediction Center on the 6 to 10 days, warm, and then the third day or fourth day in a row, suddenly it's cold.
Oh yeah.
Now,
they did not have a good November.
No,
CPC did not have a good November.
Right.
I mean,
so
especially on the.
It's the same reason. It's the same reason why they always have the same forecast for El Nino. Whenever El Nino shows up on winter, it's always the same forecast. They never vary it.
They pull out of a file. They have one file over here. Here's the El Nino forecast. Here's the La Nina forecast. We'll just blast that out. Here's our long range. They do that in October. The winter forecast.
I know many of the folks here can recall that since the year 2000, we've had some winters which have been colder than normal, and a few which have been much colder than normal, like the 2013-14 winter. The big snow winters of 2009-10, 2002, 2003. There have been a few of them. Not a lot, but over the last 23 winters, we've had about 7 or 8 of them which have been below normal, cold and snowy. The Climate Prediction Center winter forecast missed every one of them. They didn't get a single one of the cold winters right. Now, they got the majority of the warm winters right, okay? And because of the climate regime we're in now, when you go mild winter, you're almost always going to be right. But when it comes to forecasting the cold winters, of the last 7 or 8 cold winters we've had since 2000, they've missed every single one of them.
Well, yeah, certainly close. 13, 14, 14, 15. And 14, 15, by the way,
bust.
And 14, 15 should be, to remind everybody, 14, 15 didn't really start until the middle of January.
Yes.
And it lasted to the very last day of March. So that was enough, and I remember that particular December. It did actually snow once. I think New York City got 3 inches on one event, but it was a one-time affair. But the month itself was about 3 degrees above average. So in that particular instance, it wasn't really until about the middle of the month, and there was I think it was a weak El Nino year. There was a typhoon in the Pacific that recurved. And it blew up
the
this
Bering Sea, flipped it.
Right, and it blew up this massive upper low in the Bering Sea / southern.
Yeah, 926 millibars. I remember. Right. I saw the maps for that sucker.
And that basically locked the pattern in the eastern part of the United States for the next.
That was it. It flipped it
for the next 6 to 8 weeks.
And of course, and to be fair to CPC, the Climate Prediction Center, there's no way you could know that.
No,
there's no way you could see that on predicting climate model is going to happen. I mean, even if you had a model which showed a huge 926 Category 5 ocean low in the Bering Sea, would you believe it?
No.
Why would you even think such a thing's going to happen? So a complete other blue, but you have to keep that in mind. Stuff happens, things change. It's weather, folks.
It is, and people get very emotional about it.
I know.
Where's
my snow?
Well, even worse, Dave. I got really mad. I was really pissed off on Sunday because of the fact that I had a few people who, were complaining that I was posting about the fact that there was a major storm coming up the East Coast because it was rain and who cares?
Yeah.
And I just I wrote back very simply. I said, perhaps you don't care, but there are people who, where this could be a problem, and there are people who live on the coast. That it could be a problem, but there's this just sort of, sort of self-centered attitude. I just I have no patience for that stuff.
No, everything's about how much snow on my back porch. The only thing I care about.
Right, it's my zip code. That's all that matters.
Right, that's the only thing that matters. You can't fix stupid.
And by the way, what was particularly surprising was the storm surges to me.
It was pretty massive.
Yeah, considering the fact that we were in the ebb part of the moon phase, That really
Yeah, if that
surprised
had
me.
come at full tide, that would have been a much more destructive storm. I mean,
Oh
at
yeah.
a new moon or full moon, yeah. And the other thing is, a lot of people don't realize that, there's not been a lot of rain in September, October, or November on the East Coast. A lot of areas from Georgia to Maine have been in drought, D1 and D2.
Yes.
So between this storm and the one we had 2 Sundays ago, a lot of areas have seen anywhere from 150 to 300% above normal rainfall. Okay, and has really helped alleviate the drought. And it doesn't seem like much to a lot of folks, but we have a lot of agriculture and all the ski resorts. You can't make snow without a lot of damn water. And if you don't have enough water, you can't make the snow, even no matter what your temperatures are. So that's a big deal as well. So yeah, okay, fine. It's rain. I get that. It's not snow, but get a life.
Exactly. All right, you want to play
So,
Briller Jeopardy with us?
what? Sure. Give me a Jeopardy
Okay.
question.
Okay. So now here, this is what we call it, Briller Jeopardy, because what our resident chairman Scott Briller on the chat board every night sends us basically it's a weather quiz of some sort. Sometimes we go off topic and do other things besides weather. So tonight, Joe and Dave, we're going to do average yearly snowfall for the following cities.
Okay.
Are you ready? And the chat board will play along as they always do. The first city tonight is Atlanta, Georgia.
What is their average snowfall?
Yes, and in round numbers, by the way. You don't need to put
Okay.
decimal points here. In round numbers, what is the average snowfall for Atlanta?
1 inch.
1 inch. Joe, what do you say?
I'm not sure if it would be as little as that. I think they may get a little bit more. I remember a few years ago they actually had snow and ice problems down in Atlanta that
Yes.
caused
Yeah.
all kind of mayhem and everything. I don't know. I'll say 4 inches.
You say 4 inches. Okay. So Dave says 1. You say 4. And I'm waiting for the chat board to play catch up here because usually by now people are throwing their numbers up, but apparently
If Dave says 1 and I say 4, the average comes out to be 2.5.
Well, do you see? Are you seeing anything? Because my chat board might be running behind here. Are you seeing anybody on the chat board putting stuff up?
I don't.
Anybody putting anything up.
Oh.
The last thing I see was Frank Scalera saying, "Crybabies, we can't control the weather. I love snow, but we have to be patient."
Yes.
Okay. So it's running behind. All right. So until it catches up, I'll just say that in this instance, the correct answer is 2 inches in Atlanta, Georgia. Oh, now
Okay.
now the numbers are starting to fly. Fledweather just said 9 inches.
Not in Atlanta, no.
No, Tyler Fienga 5. 9 inches is more. I mean, up here where I am, the average here is about a foot
Right.
over the course of a winter. And then if you go up to the Georgia's highest peak, which is only 10 minutes away from here at Brasstown Bald, it's more like 35 inches up there. All right, so we're going to move on to the next one. Baltimore.
I should know that, considering that for several years I used to do.
I think it's 20. I think it's 22 inches in Baltimore.
You say
I'll say the 20. Yeah, I'll agree with that.
You'll say 22 also. All right. Well, the chat board, I'm sorry, guys, but you're kind of all running behind now. So I'm going to put Baltimore because I want to get the folks on the board involved here. So average snowfalls now for Baltimore. So start throwing your Baltimore numbers here. Still seeing it. I'm still seeing Atlanta numbers. It can't possibly be numbers for Baltimore. Okay. Norm Roberts said 11. That could still be Atlanta. I'm sorry. The chat board's running behind, so this is going to be a problem tonight.
Contino says 14.
All right, 14. Tom Contino says 14 for Baltimore.
I think that's too low.
Tyler Fienga 8.5.
No, it's way too.
Leon, that's got to be an Atlanta guess that got thrown in there. Come on, any more? This is technology, Joe. Technology, Dave.
Yeah.
Baltimore is 19.
22. There you go.
Okay. Now let's go. All right. I'm gonna. Now all the Baltimore guesses are coming up.
The Baltimore's that's coming up.
Oh God. It's like when the Verizon network goes down and your text messages don't come in for 6 hours and then you get like 50 of them.
Yeah.
Okay, Boston.
Boston is 50, I think, or 50.
Ooh, Dave.
What?
Dave. No, it's just so close. I mean, you're almost as close. I have a $10 day. If you hit it on the nose, you would have won a $10 Dick's Sporting Goods card that I have here sitting that I can't use.
I think it's like I said. I think it's like 50 inches.
Don't forget the Boston. What, about 5 years ago? They had 103 inches or something.
Yeah, so something like that's going to throw off their mean. So
right.
That I don't know. Let me think here. I think that's a
I don't know, 48 to 50 inches or something.
Split the difference.
49.
49. Joe, I don't know. You just, used all your intelligence to come up with that answer. And yes, 49 is correct. All right, here we go. Next one. There's 2 left. Buffalo.
Oh, God.
Buffalo.
Oh, Joe. I mean.
I think it's just around 100 inches. 96. I'll go 96, something like that.
Oh, good. Dave, you know something? You're so close. Was a snake, it would have bit you.
No.
If it was same as Boston, if it was a snake, it would have bit you in Boston. And if this one was a snake, it'd have bit you too. Or Buffalo, Joe Rayo.
I mean, I would just round it. I would just round it off, because there's some places, as you know, parts of Buffalo get hammered by the lake effect, but there are other parts that don't get anywhere near as much snow. So I don't know. And maybe not as high as you would think it would be. I'll say something like 80.
Say something like 80. Well, Lou Aritzio, 96. Also, if it was a snake, it would have bit him. Everybody else on the board is in the 40s and 50s. You're all way too low. It's 95.
There you go. What did I go, 97?
You said 96.
Oh, there you go.
Chicago.
I think it would have bit him.
See, just Chicago.
Twice.
Yeah.
I just saw a picture the other day of the Great.
Oh, wait a second. I know that because when I was in the Navy, I was at Great Lakes with Keegan. I know it was around originally in the upper 40s or mid 40s, but the warming climate has changed that.
I'll say 40, Joe.
Oh my God.
39.
And 39 is the correct answer. 39 is the correct answer. Boy, you were really good, Dave. You missed you missed Boston by 1. Missed Baltimore by 2. Okay. You missed Atlanta by 1, but Atlanta's 2, so that's not really that's a 50% miss. But Boston, Buffalo, Chicago, you got them all within 1. Okay, the last one here is a bonus one. Caribou, Maine.
I knew it.
Wow.
Last night Caribou was the last one with the bonus, and I knew that tonight it would.
Caribou? Jeez, I have no idea.
Rayo?
I'll say 110.
You know what, Joe? That's actually I think that's a good guess.
Yeah, I'm thinking around that. I know it's above 100. Is it one? I'll go with the other. We can split the difference. I'll go 120.
I knew you were going to say 120. And you know what? If it was a snake, it would have bit you again. 118.
Oh, wow.
118. So
I know my stuff. I know so.
Yeah, listen. I've never doubted it.
I'm closer than the Eagles.
Yeah, that wasn't a really flattering performance at the end of the game last night, was it?
No, they're done. They won't win a single playoff game. They're done.
So it was pretty pathetic.
Hurts is regressing. There's no doubt about it. He's regressing.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure exactly what it is. I mean, the receivers can still catch. They can still run the ball. It's just that whenever they have to, put together a drive or make a stop or whatever, something's falling apart. It's not working. So.
And Dallas looked utterly awful on Thursday night.
Dallas?
Yes.
Yeah. No, they're pretenders, and like the Eagles, it's not gonna. It's gonna be. No one's gonna stop the 49ers. So.
No, I totally agree with you. I'm just for laughs. I'm looking. I wanted to see if the ensemble from the Zero Z ensemble from last night, just to look out, long range, but it's on the slow side tonight, so I don't have the whole thing in. It's only out to like 400 hours or so.
Right. Won't be out for another hour yet. So.
Yes, sir. Well,
and before I forget, because I did forget last night, I apologize. All those who hit the tip jar tonight: William Huber, Leon Probitsky, Robert
Lomanicki,
Louis Orizio, Ken Musillo, and of course, need I say, the chairman as well. Thank you all for hitting Super Chat tonight.
Dave, I'm glad you showed up tonight. I mean, imagine you and Ruben Fairchild are both on the same day. It's just, it's a mere.
It's clearly the sign. It's clearly the sign that the Antichrist has arisen. So
I was going to say either that or it's a Christmas miracle.
I go with the Antichrist.
This is. I mean, that's who would have thunk, right? I mean, I thought Ruben Fairchild was left for dead. Right? We never hear from him again. And you're right. On the same night that we have Dave Tolerus, we have Ruben Fairchild.
There you go.
An aspirin.
All right, guys. I got to cut out for a bit, so I got to go do stuff.
All right, go do stuff because we're going to say goodnight too. So, anything to add, Mr. Mayo?
No, nothing.
All right, hang on. I'm banging.
We'll set up something up next week, Joe and Joe. We'll do maybe after Christmas or something. See what the pattern looks like then.
Yeah, we'll be back. We're going to be off after tomorrow. We're off until next Tuesday. So yeah, sure, absolutely. You're always welcome.
All right, guys. Sounds great.
Just let me know ahead of time. You don't have to lurk on the board. You can let me know ahead of time so we can have you on from the beginning.
Yeah, I know. Okay.
Ciao, bello.
See you. Bye.
All right. Bye. Okay, Joe and Joe Weather Show is brought to you by Tempest by WeatherFlow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system and join the fastest growing observatory